Do you fear death? Why not? I wish you a pleasant viewing, as well as... Can you answer yourself to this question? Write in the comments will be interesting to read. Story 1. I fear a quiet death. I fear death while I haven't made an impact on the world. I fear feeling like a drop of water in the ocean, forgotten as soon as I cease to exist. I guess I also fear the act of dying. Death itself is meh, I have no thoughts about it. But dying could be really unpleasant, like living alone and you trip and paralyze yourself and you slowly die over days. That unpleasant. Story 2. Yes and no. I don't believe in any religions, but I also don't believe in an eternal nothingness. You know how nothing is ever created and nothing is ever destroyed when it comes to matter. I believe in something similar when it comes to souls. Because are you seriously telling me that the only way to create literally anything tangible in the entire universe can be done by a couple of teenagers after a few too many bottles of wine out of grandma's liquor cabinet? And the only way to destroy anything can be done by a madman with a gun? It just doesn't make any sense to me. The only thing close to an explanation I've got is some form of reincarnation, but I still don't know and never really will. Story 3. In the abstract, I don't fear it too much. However, I was once in a plane that hit some turbulence. This was shortly after there was a news story of an airliner crashing. When the first bout of turbulence struck, every single person's head in the cabin shot up. We were all thinking about that recent plane crash. I just knew it. I started feeling terrified of death in that moment. All the animal instincts came knocking. The only other time I felt something like that was when I got locked in a chest in the basement when playing hide and seek. Perhaps it's best to just quote Woody Allen. I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens. Story 4. I'm just too attached to the earth. I mean, even if there is something after death, I'd just really miss our planet. Sometimes I think about it when I'm outside and I notice that I'm here and I'm experiencing the birds singing, the sun on my skin, the color of trees and flowers, the funny moments with my friends. In those moments, I realize how much I am lucky to experience all this, and knowing that one day I'll have to leave all of this behind makes me sad. Story 5. Yes and no. Yes, because I think about all the things in life I'd never get to see or experience again, like family, friends, pets, etc. I would fear to lose them and just completely cease to exist. Same with death in other people. I fear them dying because I'd never get to see them again. And no, because, well, it'll happen eventually, and when it does, there's nothing to worry about after that. We'd all be gone eventually, and there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. I probs didn't word that right. It's hard to explain. Story 6. It's not that I fear it. It's more like I'm scared on what pain I would cause to others such as my family, friends, and overall my loved ones. ID death as a peaceful thing to realize you, but it's just scary to acknowledge the fact that once you die, you can go back to your regular life. Maybe I just don't want to be forgotten. Story 7. Not one bit. Death is all about perspective. Walking outside and going through my day being fearful is going to paralyze me emotionally. I cannot be afraid of what the world or another human will do to me, because if I let my actions guide me, then I will sidestep danger. I act freely and know that if it is fated, so be it. Story 8. I am afraid of pain of all kinds. No brave adventurer, me, but I do not fear death. I simply do not want it. I want more of life. I shall be saddened to go. I do not believe it is shameful or cowardly to not want to die. If you die thinking there was so much more to do and see, I would agree and think it sad, and not at all think less of you. For I expect should my death be natural, it would be one of my final thoughts. Story 9. I fear the unknown, which I have encountered many times. I've been relieved by some experiences and horrified by others. I also have an anxiety disorder, so I tend to be very cynical in regards to personal experiences. As such, I'm afraid that death will be horrifying despite having no real basis on which to believe that one way or the other. However, I know that's the what if of anxiety talking, not a fear based on rational expectations. So to answer your question, it depends on what you mean. Am I afraid of death? Yes, in the sense that I have anxiety problems that cause me to fear things irrationally. No, in the sense that I have no reason to expect death to be unpleasant in itself, disregarding the relative comfort or discomfort of the circumstances leading up to death. Story 10. I used to be kind of religious, so I always believed in some sort of an afterlife. After getting older and developing a mind of my own, I just can't comprehend some aspects of an afterlife. I find myself always asking, what would God do if I dropped an F-bomb up there? How can he fit so many people up there? How do you enjoy an afterlife without negative emotions like sadness to help you appreciate the good times? IDK man, I just fear that Rick and Morty are right and there's nothing on the other side. Story 11. This spirals me into the rabbit hole. I don't want to be self-aware as my organs shut down and my heart is the last to go. For that last adrenaline hit to wake me up only to suffocate as my lungs give out. That doesn't sound pleasant. Death, forever nothing, doesn't scare me because best case, afterlife. Worst case, same as the 13 billion years before I was here. What scares me is the fact that me, everything I am and everything I've ever done will be forgotten in at most 2, maybe 3 generations. Then I wonder what's the point now? Who gets remembered? Only those really great or really terrible. Even celebs don't get remembered, so I won't. So then what do I leave behind? 1 lifetime? Have I wasted it? And so the rabbit hole goes on, as you can imagine. Story 12. I don't fear death because it occurring naturally is too far away for me at this point. I can reasonably expect to live another 50 years at least, and if it comes before that, it'll probably be an accident so quick. I do get the occasional nightmare about my dog's death, though. Why did God give dogs such a small lifetime? Story 13. Not really. I'm an 80s baby, so I would never give up the amazing time in history I was born, but it will suck not seeing all the medical and science breakthroughs that will happen in the 2100s and later. All the cool cyberpunk limbs and shit and pop a pill like we pop aspirin to get rid of serious STDs and stuff. Story 14. Yes, there are a few main reasons. Death is the one guarantee of living, and honestly, we have no concrete clues for what happens. To me, it seems that, although heaven would be ideal, unconscious is likely. And personally, I like being conscious. Thinking, feeling, experiencing. These are privileges that I have since I live. When I die, there is no guarantee of anything. There might just be nothing. My life would be a gap of consciousness between voids of non-existence. But at least before this life, I had the promise of living. Unless you believe in reincarnation, which I don't, this is everything we get. This life, the most precious thing, and in a few years I'll get a job and waste it behind a desk, although I'd rather do any other thing. That's not even taking into consideration the possibility of continuing to exist after life, which is a whole other can of worms. There are thousands of religions, many promising terrible punishments for failing to believe. What if I'm wrong in my choice? If I commit to a faith, what if I've committed the sin of false idolatry? In continuing to panic over this, yet not choosing either, I am either wasting my only life or failing to prepare for the next one. If I am religious, but there is no afterlife, I have spent my whole life lying to myself and obtaining from trying things that I really wanted to do. But if I am not religious, and there is an afterlife, especially one of the Abrahamic ones, then I would suffer a terrible fate. This is one of the subjects debated for thousands of years, and we haven't yet confirmed one or the other. If you ask 100 people, you'll likely get at least a dozen answers, and it's not very comforting to realize that many people are very assured in their answers, but still vehemently disagree with each other. My therapist said to believe what feels right for me, but that's the same thing that other religious or secular people do. And if believing in whatever you choose is the right choice, then why do so many believers think that other believers are wrong? Who do I believe? The only thing they seem to have agreed on is that everyone else is wrong. So, I may be making the wrong choice either way. And it's not like this is something I can just opt out of either. Death really isn't an option. It's inevitable, and at some point immediate. One day, death won't be in the future. It will be here, and I don't think I'll be able to cope. So my current method is not engaging with any discussion of it, because surely this is something I can hide from. The monsters can't get you under the blanket, but death isn't a monster. It's a result of living. Story 15. I'm afraid of dying and getting old, 2 things that I cannot change, but IDKK if I'm afraid of death itself. I've seen it my whole life, so I'm thinking it has more to do with me leaving this earth and missing out on things once I'm gone. I mean, I'm afraid of missing out on things now that I'm alive, but I'm also afraid of getting old and inheriting all the bad health issues that come with age. Story 16. I do not because I've died twice in some pretty horrific ways. First, I was 4, got pushed into a pool by a 13-yo kid who held me down until I drowned. Heart stopped and the whole shebang. Luckily was resuscitated once my dad dove in and pulled me out. Second, when I was 12, I was electrocuted by a 2x high power horse fence. Went to open the gate not knowing it was on. The sticker was rubbed off at this point, and let's just say I couldn't let go of the gate line. Should have checked it with some grass first, but nope. Woke up in the barn being resuscitated because my heart stopped. Was only found because the horse I was bringing out ran right back to the barn. I was out for 15 minutes by myself. I don't fear death because it's a lot less dramatic than people think. I didn't see any lights or hear God or anything like that. I just remember the horrible thing happening and then waking up from a really deep and shitty sleep. I think how you die matters though, and I never want to die either of those ways again, so damn painful. Now I'm just afraid of seizures. While my risk of death is higher by having epilepsy, it's really not the death I fear. Instead, I'm scared of the confusion and possibly awful situations I can get myself into. I'm scared of the millions of memories now missing and being stolen away from me by my own brain. I'm scared for my dad who would be alone if I died. I'm scared for my boyfriend who would have to mourn me after 10 years of being by my side and 7 years taking care of me. Death is superficial in my eyes. Story 17. Yes and no. The thought of my brain turning off is scary to me. It's impossible to relate to the idea of nothingness, because all any of us have ever known is somethingness. The idea that my consciousness will just cease to exist gives me an existential crisis. I know I'll be just like it was before I was born, aka there's nothing to relate to, but it still weirds me out. And I was born Christian, in a tradition that believes you're saved for good once as you're baptized, a gross oversimplification. So the other part of me is anxious to know what an afterlife could be like. I won't have any needs or wants, so I'm not sure what the point of existing would even be. I think for me, personally, the fear of being dead is all about not being able to relate it to what I know. I don't know what happens next, and I don't know why it happens, so there's no way for me to get ready for it. That's where my anxiety comes from. Story 18, I'm scared of what's after that. I'm a Christian. I have been my whole life, though I'm small-town Latino Christianity, meaning we're unaffiliated with the large-scale church that you hear all the bad things about. I've always been taught to love everyone, no matter what. Hell, my pastor has a trans daughter and had a daughter that commits suicide. So I'd consider us what Christianity says it should be and not what it has become. I believe in God. I believe that there is a heaven and a hell, but I also think maybe there might not be. I question myself. I've seen so much evil, so much hatred, so many terrible things happen. Hell, in the last year alone, my life has been terrible, and yet it's better than it was. How does that work? I believe that if I do good in my life, I will get to see heaven, but also, what if? Story 19. Yes, I feel I have much more to do and see. I haven't even been to Europe yet. I haven't seen my favorite artist performing in person. I've only been married 6 years. I hope to be married for 50 before I die. I also don't want to leave my family behind. Yes, I fear leaving Earth, but I believe in an afterlife and can only have faith I would see my loved ones again on the other side. Story 20. No, I welcome death. I'm not actively doing something about it, mostly because I don't want people around me to feel bad or responsible for my death. If I die early, I'm also afraid of the process of dying. Some could cause a lot of suffering, but being dead? That would make all the pain and suffering go away. Life isn't good to me, and I'm unable to make it better. I've been trying for a long time, and it's not working, and I'm getting more and more exhausted. So disappearing would be extremely welcomed. I don't believe in afterlife, and so on. I believe that once I'm dead, I'm just gone. Story 21. I do not fear death at all. When I was a fentanyl addict, I overdosed once and was dead for 3 minutes. I didn't see a damn thing. No bright light, no family, nothing. And as for the actual act of dying, I think the slower the better for me, so I can look back on all the shit I've done to people and still have the time to tell myself I did the right thing. Story 22. Yes, I fear death for both the process and what comes after it. How much would it hurt? What follows death? An endless void where you have no consciousness, or an afterlife where people are divided into good and bad and sent to heaven or hell? Or are you reincarnated? Just really terrified. The thought of death used to keep me up at nights terrified and crying. Now I have somewhat come to terms that no matter what I do, I will have to face it. That upsets me that no matter I do, I will die. Story 23. No, I do not fear death. I was in the military, stationed overseas, and hit in my personal vehicle. 3.5 weeks later, I woke from a coma. Mental capacity was not fully there. I came to find out that I was dead for a total time of 35.5 minutes over 3 separate heart failures. I cannot say what I saw was my experience or the mad drugs they were pushing via IV to keep me alive. What I saw was so beautiful and overwhelming at the same time. A cosmos so full of color and life. Being able to travel to limitless ends. The most free I've ever felt or could even think of feeling. I even saw my family weeping for my return, in third person, including my father, who I have never seen cry. When I woke from my coma, still in bodily pain, of course, I had felt like I had the best rest of my life, I am assuming because my body completely shut down for those few moments. If death is freedom, I have tasted it. I do not fear death. But life is still a precious gift that everyone takes for granted every day. If anyone has any questions for me beyond what I have explained, I am happy to answer them. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it, be sure to write comments and share your stories.